How big, how big is your bucket? How big is your bucket? Not something cryptic. I do have a reason for talking about buckets. This is my simplest way of describing how to eat in a way that ultimately serves you, in a way that helps you to lose the weight and tone up. Well, actually, it's going to help you lose the weight. It's not going to help you tone up. But if you understand how big your bucket is, it will help you. It will be the key to unlock that weight loss, that specifically fat loss that you may have been wanting to do for years now. Okay? Because no one's told you about the bucket. So I'm here to tell you about the bucket. What is the bucket, Michael? Or what are you wittering on about? All right. So the bucket is basically your bucket in terms of your body, right? So imagine your body is a bucket. You slapped your name on it, you've personalized it, you've stuck some bells and whistles on it, and it's you. And how most people who have piled on those lockdown pounds have been treating their buckets over the last year or so is that they've been overfilling their buckets, right? Their buckets have been overfilled. And when we overfill the bucket, i.e. the body, with too many calories, it's not like when you're on the seaside and you put sand in the bucket and anything that is too much just spills out onto the side and you can't keep it in the bucket. Unfortunately, our bucket is a very efficient bucket in that if you give your body too many calories, instead of letting it spill off over the side, our bodies actually hold on to those extra calories, okay? And what it does is it sticks it on our body somewhere. And in the case of men and women, it varies from person to person as to where those extra calories, which are converted into fat, are then stored on the body. It could be around your belly, could be on your bum, could be your legs, could be under your chin, arms, anywhere. The body decides, okay, where to put that extra calorie or calories and those extra fat cells, basically, right? Because the body, your bucket, sees those extra calories as precious, and so it wants to keep them in its refrigerator, is the best way of describing it, right? In your fat stores, because we've evolved, but not enough to the point where we no longer need those extra calories and therefore we get rid of them. Our bodies keep hold of them for a rainy day. Okay, so if you're constantly filling up your bucket, then that extra fat is going to be added to the body, because if you've got a bucket and you fill it right up to the top, right up to the brim, that is the equivalent of you having enough calories to function every day, to do all the things that you do with this body of yours, okay? If you fill your bucket right up to the top, to the brim, then that is the equivalent of you getting enough calories in. If you don't fill up that bucket enough, that is where you create a calorie deficit, okay? In terms of you've got a combination of movement and activity and food and drink, which end up with you ultimately having X amount of calories in your bucket, but it means that the bucket isn't totally full. And then you've got the other case, which we're all well aware of, which is where we're overfilling the bucket. So we pile it all on top, okay? And those extra calories don't fall away, and you're suddenly in a calorie surplus, which is when we get weight gain, when we get fat gain, okay? So you need to know how big your bucket is in the first place. You need a starting point. You need to understand how big your bucket actually is, because if you know how big your bucket is and you know that you're consistently over, then you can do something about it. Whereas if you don't know how big your bucket is in the first place, you don't know what your starting point is. You don't know whether you're ever going to be over or under. But if you're piling on lockdown pounds, then you know that consistently there's been excess calories going in, right? Through snacking, through poor food choices, through bigger portions, whatever it is, like there's too many calories going into the body, and so weight has been added. Okay, so you need to know what size bucket you're actually holding. Is it a bucket that can take 2,000 calories? Is it a bucket that can take 3,000 calories? Whatever that number is, you can work it out as a starting point. It's not a be all and end all. It's not the number that is one that you have to work with forever, but it's a starting point. Because what you do if you're wanting to lose weight, specifically if you want to lose fat, what you need to do is get that bucket to a point where you're not quite filling it up. You're filling it almost to the top, but then there's a gap, and that gap creates that calorie deficit. And when you have that gap, what it means is that your body is searching for those extra calories, and if you haven't given it those extra calories, then it needs to get it from somewhere else, i.e. your body's store of the fat that is highly efficient in terms of when you want to produce energy. Okay, because in terms of calories, like a fat cell gives you 9 calories, okay, whereas a gram of protein or carbs is only going to give you 4 calories. All right, so it's like fat is really efficient in terms of a way of storing calories, in terms of storing energy, but it's not necessarily energy that we all want to have on our bodies, right? So to get rid of the fat that we don't want, if you want to, then you need to understand how big your bucket is. I'll drop a comment below this video as to how you could start by calculating it. But for now, do you know how big your bucket is? And do you know how much you're filling it up with?